Hi, this is Rick Harsh, um, author of Voices After Evelyn, and this is part 4 of the story behind the crime that generated this book. And today I'm going to talk about the characters that I chose to write about in the book. The story, to recap, is based on a generational, as they say these days, crime that occurred in La Crosse, Wisconsin, in 1953, when a babysitter went missing and was never found. And you'll find, if you Google Evelyn Hartley, you'll find several true crime shows about this mystery because it was never solved. Missing persons cases and so on. Um, and the importance of the crime was long term because it was the first crime in La Crosse, Wisconsin, that was shocking and seemed like something that would only happen somewhere else, like in a big city or, you know, something like that. A town like La Crosse, Wisconsin, didn't have, weird things happening. Actually, it did, and I could research that and come up with some of the strange things that happened in La Crosse, Wisconsin. The strangest thing was that Ed Gein was born, but at the time this happened, nobody knew anything about Ed Gein. His family had moved to Plainfield, Wisconsin, and it was only a couple of years later, around 1957, that he was caught killing someone, gutting her like a deer, and frying up some of her innards. And what he was mostly wasn't much of a murderer. He killed 2 people, but he also had a bizarre mother fetish that is very effectively portrayed in the movie Psycho, which was based on him. He was also a taxidermist, and he used human skin for his taxidermy. And he used the skin for things like lampshades and so on. But the most extraordinary thing that he did was try try. He had a wig, and he had things. I don't know if he ever used his mother's skin, but he would dress as his mother and dance in the moonlight. That was he was a sick man, and well, he was born in La Crosse, Wisconsin, but at that time, nobody, when in 1953, nobody knew that in 2 years, the state and the city would be famous for something else. The Ed Gein, one of the most, will always be one of the most bizarre crimes. Jeffrey Dahmer's a name that everyone knows now. There's something about cannibalism that really turns the stomach. Sorry. Uh, so today we're going to wrap this up, probably. Maybe there will be an epilogue, a shorter one. But I wanted to talk about how I chose characters to write about this event because I did not set out to solve the crime or create a mystery novel in which I come up with a hypothesis that it plays out in fiction, and uh, and through that I deliver a possibility about the crime. I just wanted to portray the events surrounding the crime, which were very bizarre. I mentioned the gas station. People were in La Crosse, Wisconsin, were encouraged to take their car to a gas station and have an attendant check the back seats and the trunks for traces of Evelyn or blood or whatever. And if nothing was found, a sticker was put on that said "My car is okay." I hope I don't have to explain how bizarre that was. Um, uh, but that does help me lead into what I want to talk about, is how did I choose characters? Well, I talked in a previous episode about a friend's father who was 30 at that time and was kind of a wild guy, a funny guy, and that led to the character Bobby, a 30-year-old who works at a gas station. Perfect. I had to have somebody, one character who reflects the bizarre nature of that event. So Bobby works at a gas station. His boss is his best friend. His boss is One-Armed Buzzy. I don't know where One-Armed Buzzy came from the bowels of my imagination. Why was he One-Armed Buzzy? I don't know. It might have been because I talked to a lot of people about well-known people in that day and age, and I got a lot of great stories. There might have been one that involved a one-armed man, but One-Armed Buzzy is his best friend, and they engage in hijinks throughout the novel. Pretty even when the hijinks are criminal, as in at least one case is true. They're actually just breaking in and stealing beer and maybe a little money from a rival gas station, who they are at a low level war with, and so those two characters were, you had to have the gas stations, But another thing that could have been challenging is what I wanted to portray 1953 La Crosse. This innocent town, and that's how the crime is looked at, as the loss of innocence. Evelyn's disappearance represents the loss of innocence. I wanted to portray the innocent town as it really was, which was a wild drinking town. And I came up with a lot of stories. One of my favorites, there's a brewery there, Old Style Beer, if you remember that one. It was brewed in Wisconsin at the time, in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And the brewery was a big part of the city's landscape. And there was a story about this apparently true story about a woman whose husband, well, when you think of the word cuckold, that's, it's usually a sort of a pathetic thing. The cuckold is represented as or suggests a pathetic person, things going on behind his back and that he doesn't know and whatever. Well, there was this guy who would go, I think he worked at the brewery, and he had a night shift. And as soon as he would go to work, there would be a space where his car was in front of the house, and his wife slept with whoever pulled in first. And, so was it sometimes a race to get there? I don't know. But just a little something about the city. There was a judge and I think his name was Lincoln Neprud, Kneprud, Lincoln Neprud. He was a county judge, and he lived about 30 miles from La Crosse. But he was a big drinker, and he was a bit authoritarian, and he was corrupt, at least on the level of drinking. You know, he expected to drink free, and he actually had one well-known bar that was on the edge of town. He had it closed down through whatever legal means were at his disposal, because they once charged him. They charged him for his drinks, and I imagine this character would have been played by an elder William, not William Holden. Who am I thinking of? It'll come to me. It'll come to me. But anyway, Sterling Hayden. Sterling Hayden, yeah, would have played the judge. You know, very deep voice and authoritarian. Anyway, he would drive all the way home drunk. You know, always drunk, and eventually, that led to a car accident in which I think he died, and so did about 6 people in another car. The highways outside town are rural highways. You can drive pretty fast, but you know they're 2-lane, and there's not a lot of room for the errors that will be made by a drunken judge. So of course he was a character. I gave him the name Hamilton Swigum. It's hard to take a fantastic name like Lincoln Neprud and give it a fictional counterpart, but I thought Hamilton Swigum was a good solution. But another aspect that I had to take into account is that this story goes into the future, and to the extent that, as I talked about previously, in 1989, 36 years later, after the crime, a hot tip was received, and it led to bulldozers digging up a draw, little valley leading into the Mississippi, and looking for apparently the car in which Evelyn Hartley was abducted, or thrown into while she was being abducted. And I mean, it was taken seriously. So there was something about that call that really convinced authorities that this was real. And so it goes to 1989. And the way that I decided to deal with that was to put a reporter on that case. And the reporter's name is Todd Mills. And he's kind of a easygoing, but it's not really cynical. He's too nice to be cynical. But, you know, he's not really highly regarded at the paper, and you know, any shit story that nobody else wants to do, give it to Todd. It's raining, and you know, somebody's got to drive 25 miles upriver and check on this lead, and spend a day in Winona, Wisconsin, and you know, while they're bulldozing this fairly large area. And you know, who wants to do that? Give it to Todd Mills. He'll do it. And then there's another case nobody really wants to deal with, and he gets that as well. So when he's driving back, and the bulldozing did nothing, you know, for the case. They found nothing. He was given another case, or another story, which was about a man who was kept in a storm shelter and by his wife, locked at night into the storm shelter, and pretty well neglected. I mean, she fed him, but he was poorly clothed. And at the brewery, people felt sorry for him. They'd give him clothes and so on. And I don't really know the story behind that, but Todd Mills goes there and finds there that there's a surprising connection to the Evelyn case, in that the woman, I won't say too much because I don't want to spoil it. There's possibilities of spoiling surprises, I guess, of some kinds. The woman who was keeping her husband in the cellar. I will spoil one thing. They're not really married. Anyway, and she was not a sadist or a jail keeper. It's a little more complicated and strange than that. But she was Evelyn Hartley's classmate, knew Evelyn Hartley, and liked her, even though she came from the wrong side of the tracks and Evelyn was on the right side of the tracks. She liked Evelyn because they were in a class together, and Evelyn let her cheat on a test, let her copy her paper, even kind of put it so that she could see it, because this woman is looking over, and Evelyn can tell that she wants a copy. So Evelyn, Evelyn was not the snotty, stuck-up girl that this woman, who back before she was the person with a man in her cellar, was known as Stella, and was part of the, I guess you'd call it the in crowd, but the in crowd was the kind of the ruffian crowd, the girls who hung out with older boys and fought and hated people like Evelyn for being perfect and being in the glee club and things like that. And Stella always stuck up for Evelyn, and actually got in a vicious argument with one of her friends, sticking up for Evelyn. And so that argument was witnessed by Bobby, the 30-year-old, and that was how she met Bobby, and she and Bobby became a pair. Now, one thing I love about it, please go to Leaf by Leaf, Chris Villa's brilliant review of this book, because he gets right what is most important to me. He talks about the soteriology of transgression. Great phrase. And there is transgression, and to a purpose, and to a purpose that can be uncomfortable to people. Stella is 15, but she's 15, as they say, or used to when it was safe, 15 going on 25. Evelyn was 15, barely able to get to 15, given the behavioral strictures and so on. And I dealt with that in a way that I think a couple people found disturbing. There's a scene in which, these days, like today is almost one of them here, a spring day, and it's warm, and people are ready to show off their summer clothes, and as a young randy boy, on days like this, I'd call them hard nipple days, and because we were obsessed young boys with the female body, And women would wear warm weather clothes, and then around dusk, before dusk, well before dusk, late afternoon, it would become chilly, and nipples would be hard, and would be the often you would see lots of nipples. Well, on one of these days, Evelyn is witnessed by the narrator, and he sees Evelyn's nipple. And so the suggestion here is something about um, the that bizarre age of 15, where boys are usually there are very few boys who are really developed by then, but there are a lot of girls who are, and it leads to a strange imbalance between the two sexes, because basically the behavior of boys forces women to grow up quicker and become smart, because boys are predators, and the young girls, well, I remember one beautiful girlfriend of mine, who actually she came after me at, I don't know, maybe I was about 12, and so was she, and she was not developed yet, and we became not lovers. I think we kissed, maybe not. I don't know, but I went on vacation that summer, and when I came back, she had broken up with me and was going out with Tom Borchard, who was about 3 years ahead of me developmentally, even though he was my age. The next year, she had developed further, and she was going out with my older brother, 2 years older than me, and physically mature, and but she was turning into a voluptuous, gorgeous woman, and so she broke his heart, and that I lost track of her somewhere in there. She was 15 and going out with adults, and that's just something that does happen. And what normally happens with 15-year-old girls, most of them are more like Evelyn Hartley. They do what their parents expect them to do, and they dress conservatively, and they don't get pregnant, and they whatever. Anyway, but it's an uncomfortable thing for some people to think about. So I had these two 15-year-old girls. One was Evelyn Hartley, the victim, and I don't talk about her a lot, but I don't talk about anybody a lot, because and here's something that's kind of fun. There are two main points to take from this. The novel is written in the voices of the characters. So there's Marla Rothkert, the witch, who was thrown in to. It was an artistic move that allowed me to connect this phenomenon of perverse crime to the movie M. And there are hints throughout, and often delivered through Marla Rothkert, the witch. So she opens the novel. She says odd things, but she opens the novel with, "I saw Evelyn in the shower. She had the rudimentary wings of a stillborn angel." What the hell does that mean? I don't know. But then it says Todd Mills, reporter. And then Todd Mills tells a story about going up and finding that there's no bodies buried in 1989, or no cars buried, or whatever. Then the next voice is the chorus. Throughout there's a chorus because there's a town, and the town has an organic quality. So there's a chorus. And after the chorus, we finally introduce Bobby. And so Bobby's talking. And at some point, then we go back to Todd Mills, and then we go back to Bobby. And Bobby introduces through a night at the Cuckoo Club that goes throughout the book. Uh, book goes back and forth a lot, but it's easy to follow. Um, let's see where. Oh, One Arm Buzzy on page 36. He introduces himself, and you know, uh, he was one of the people who would try to get his car parked first at Maggie's house. Uh, Stella, the young wild one, speaks a lot in the book, and I think she gets some of the nicest passages. Um, and the thing about this that I want to express, I started this channel. I didn't even think of it as a channel at the time, a booktube channel, but I just started making videos because there was this masterclass shit going on, and Neil Gaiman and even Salman Rushdie, they were delivering master classes. Martin Scorsese even did one, not in fiction, as far as I know. But I just thought it was fucking hilarious. Joyce Carol Oates and Margaret Atwood, and you'd see these very very well received, well paid, well known authors teaching a master class, and I just was mocking that. And every day there was something that my master class would do this or that, and it was just one joke after another. Did a master class on cooking, and a good friend of mine who is dead now. This is for him. I will only repeat this master class tale because it was his favorite. I'm teaching male writers, to cook, and because you can't expect, whether your wife is a writer or not, or your girlfriend or whatever, you can't expect them to do all your cooking while you sit in your room going, oh, let me change that sentence. I don't change many sentences. Anyway, so I taught them how to make an egg, and and how if you have everything done right, you can just flip it, and I flip it, but it hits the ceiling and starts dripping down. That was my master class on cooking. And I'm not saying it was brilliant or hilarious, but I'm saying that my friend Tom Frantz, who is now dead, it was his favorite, and he shared it with his son. And so, anyway, the reason I did this to begin with was simply to mock writers who had the lack of wit to present themselves as masters. And this is a very complicated issue that deals with my scorn for writers' workshops and various other things, editing, which leads to agency. I had an agent who did not understand this book. I forgot the master's class advice I can give you is that it's a lot easier to write in the first person than than any other voice. I think my theory is that Philip Roth was so prolific because he wrote in the first person, and what it makes it easy is that you get into character. You're in a character, and you stay in that character, and then you can just go and go and go. Just like you're just talking and talking and talking. Like when you're sitting at a bar and spending some time talking about your past or telling stories, you're never self-conscious about that. You can go on and on and on about your events, your experiences, your life. And of course, some storytellers are better than others, and that's true. But it's a lot easier than if somebody else comes in and says, "Oh, let me tell you about his youth and this story." It's a lot easier in the first person. Just kind of just flows right out. And so this book is all first person, but it's not just one first person. There are a lot of voices. There are just a few main voices, but I do have a section in the middle where everybody talks about all the characters, even minor characters, are given the chance to say something about the crime and what they think happened and so on. And for instance, minor character Joe Turner says, "Obviously some sick son of a bitch killed her, someone really sick. I'd check the loony bins within a radius of 300 miles. How hard could that be? Some sick bastard on a whizzer. It's a wonder they haven't found him already." Judge Hamilton Swiggum, "He will hang here or in hell." And then, Al Petros Sr., very, very minor character, says, "I lay odds it was that sick bastard Heine Schmock. They ought to hang him." Well, it's easy to write in the first person, get into the character, and you're there. So that's my master class on writing. Go in the first person, and just run with it. Don't stop to edit. Don't stop to think. Just be that character, and be free, and you'll be fine. Anyway, my agent, he read this book, and a friend of ours named Whitney Terrell, who's a well published. He's not a household name. I thought he might be by now, but he's published a couple of excellent novels. Look him up. And we had the same agent, but he was friends with the agent. They went to Princeton together, and that's how they knew each other. And so we had the same agent, and Whitney Terrell told me that he had to explain to the agent that, this can be done. You can have a book with several voices. The agent was confused, or I don't know. There was something about this book, he just didn't get it. And the most obvious case is, if you want to compare it to something, is fortunately William Faulkner. There are at least two of his great books. Sound and the Fury is 4 voices. I don't recall what was the one with the as I lay dying. I think, I don't know how many voices that had, but so he said there is. Whitney told the agent, whose name is still probably Warren Fraser, who I've called a sociopath, but I can't prove it, so legally I can't say he's a sociopath. But anyway, he read this book, and he never got it. And the interesting thing about that is, one thing you learn from a master class is how to plant a seed that later in the novel will bear fruit. And I don't do that in many books, but I did do it in this one, and because I wanted readers to understand that what actually happened without describing the the details in a stark way of something that happens in the novel. That would be a spoiler. I don't want to spoil a spoiler. Oh, when did people start saying spoiler, and why does everybody say the same damn thing? Conformity. People love conformity. And now you're saying, I hate conformity. And everybody who's saying, I hate conformity, is conforming to that reaction that we have when we're caught being conformists. I don't know. Did I just insult everybody who bothered to go 36 minutes into this? I'm sorry. So anyway, the fuck your agents. You know, don't let them edit. Don't let them edit. That was the end of this book was the undoing of my relationship with my agent, and the downturn. Gil, are you there, Gil? Gil, the guy on Goodreads, who said I was a washed-up narcissist. Gil, that's what started the wash-up. You know, I maybe the narcissism comes from thinking that I know better than my agent. Well, you know, the problem with the agent, here's another little discursive moment that could be instructive. The agent is there to sell your book. He's not there to fix your book. You have an editor. If the agent says, you know, here, I have a good idea, change this, and I say, all right, if that means you'll sell the book, I'll do it, because they got power over you, you know. So you do it, you change it, and then what happens? He sells the book, you go to an editor you have to listen to there, and says, you know, this part here, it's the same part the agent said, you shouldn't, you should change that, and then you end up with the same goddamn thing. So my point is simply that the agent is the agent, the editor is the editor, and the writer is the writer. And when it comes to the creative process, the writer is up here. The editor is, usually impure in his literary thoughts, thinking a lot about how to sell your book, too much about how to sell the book instead of how, to make great literature. I did have experience with an editor once that was much to my benefit. The novel Billy Verite had two problems when I was finished with it, and he spotted them both. And the book was mightily improved. But he wasn't thinking about money. He was thinking about the book and what made sense logically in the book. And Michael Moore of Steerforth Press, terrific. And so the editors can be useful. But usually you get to that, most writers have friends who are writers or readers or both. And, go talk to your friends. Have your friends read it. Read it again. Try to always read afresh. See if you notice anything that doesn't make sense. Proofread it. Proofread it an extra couple of times. And in that process, let it be free from your iron grip. And you'll fix most things yourself. You don't need a fucking editor. And you definitely don't need a goddamn agent telling you how to edit, how to write your book. And anyway, that's in the territory of masterclass. My masterclass would be based on surviving all of the dark forces that are trying to prevent you from finishing a novel and will prevent you from selling it and publishing it, because it's a rare writer who actually does get to that point. Um, sure, well regarded by enough people to make me happy. I love that Chris Villa review, but I haven't made a cent off this book. So, was it a success? Absolutely. I mean, one great review like Chris Villa's, someone who understands something that's not, so obvious that a child of, I don't know, young adult uh, fiction could understand. Anyway, so the characters, well, one of them doesn't have a voice, but this comes from doing the research at the time that she was taken, very near her new subdivision that her family, or where she was babysitting, the family that she was babysitting for, had moved into this subdivision near the outskirts of subdivisionals. And there was one area called Robbinsdale. Like there was a Robbinsdale Lane. And there was a character going around. I don't know how true this is, but because a lot of the houses were new, people hadn't put up drapes yet. And I guess they weren't too concerned because, friendly small town atmosphere, etc. They didn't have drapes, and the Rasmussen family, who she was babysitting for, didn't have drapes. You could look right in, but they weren't too concerned with that. But in the months and even years, up to 2 years prior to this event, there was a character called the Robbinsdale Peeper, and he was several times had the cops called on him. Nobody found out who it was, because he would be caught watching women, from the gloom of darkness, that was lit only by the light bulbs in the house, And in one case, I guess you can hear through glass if you're close enough to each other. A woman is down in, I think, a laundry room, if I remember right, and it's kind of like half submerged. And she looks up to the window, and there's a man standing there, and he laughed and he said, "I'm gonna get you." That's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. So the police, no doubt, connected the two crimes. It was the Robbinsdale Peeper. But I don't think the Robbinsdale Peeper was widely reported on at that time. But, and nor was Judge Hamilton Swigum. But he was such a what they call larger-than-life figure that he had to be in the book. And so, and he was a drinker. And, well, he ends up in the book. There's much more I could say about how the book operates, but I think what I'm only going to do is add an epilogue when I'm done with this. This has been a long talk. I hope it's of some interest to one person at least, and if it's of interest to no one, I'll probably find out. I hope so. If it's of no interest to you and you find anything wrong, just tell me, Gil and others. Okay? All right. Take care, and watch the Leaf by Leaf review, and you'll probably want to read the book. Bye.